Okay, picture this. It's a random Sunday afternoon. You're just casually scrolling through your phone, and inevitably, you hit one of those posts. You absolutely know the ones. How I became a millionaire in 18 months, or, turn $1,000 into $1 million with this one weird trick. And honestly, for a split second, you kind of pause and think, wait, am I missing something here? Because you work hard, you make a decent income, but when you log into your banking app, it definitely doesn't show that overnight millionaire magic. It really makes you wonder if building actual wealth is even possible anymore, or if everyone online is just totally exaggerating. Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to break down the highly realistic version of how to build wealth in 5 years, all based on some genuinely fascinating insights from Jack Explains Money. We are going to map out a timeline that actually works in the real world. No flashy gimmicks, no crypto secrets, just a completely structured roadmap to building some serious financial momentum. So let's just get the two totally frustrating extremes of financial advice out of the way right now. On one hand, you have the get-rich-quick crowd. These are the secret trading groups, the dropshipping gurus promising you a yacht in 6 months. And then, on the complete opposite end, you have the ultra-traditional, painfully slow advice. Just diligently save every penny, never buy a coffee, invest for 40 straight years, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be sort of comfortable by the time you're 65. Neither of those paths is very inspiring, right? But here's the massive secret that most people completely miss. Building real, life-changing wealth doesn't actually take 40 years, and it for sure doesn't happen in 6 months. There is a sweet spot. 5 years. 5 years is literally enough time to completely change the entire trajectory of your financial life, but only if you focus on the right foundational steps.
But before we can start building that 5-year foundation, we need to talk about Section 1, the wealth building trap, and why just saving your money simply isn't enough.
I want you to think about it like this. Saving money is absolutely important, but saving alone is kind of like trying to fill an entire swimming pool using just a teaspoon. Now you might be wondering, wait, isn't saving money literally the whole point of personal finance? Well, yes and no. It's a crucial habit, absolutely, but if your only game plan is tucking away small handfuls of cash into a savings account, you're going to be out there scooping with that little teaspoon for a very, very long time before you ever get to jump in for a swim. Let's actually run the math on that whole teaspoon thing. Say you're saving $300 a month. Honestly, you're already doing way better than average. Federal Reserve data actually shows that nearly 40% of Americans can't even cover a $400 emergency without having to borrow money. So $300 a month is genuinely great. But let's stretch that over our 5-year timeline. That's $3,600 a year, which means $18,000 saved over 5 years. Even if you beautifully invested that money and snagged an 8% annual return, you're basically walking away with roughly $21,000 to $22,000. Now, don't get me wrong, having 22 grand in the bank is fantastic, but it's not life-changing wealth. It doesn't let you quit a boss you can't stand or, buy back your time. To do that, we need a totally different approach. Which brings us right into step 1, increase income, or what we like to call upgrading your financial engine. Think of your income literally like the engine of a car. If you're rocking a tiny little lawnmower engine, you simply cannot go 100 miles per hour, no matter how hard you push the pedal. You just need more horsepower. Let's look at two totally hypothetical people here to see how this works. Person A makes $3,000 a month and impressively saves 10% of it, so $300 a month. Person B, though, decides to spend their first 2 years obsessively upgrading their engine. They level up their skills, they negotiate, maybe they start a little side business, they boost their income to $5,000 a month. They're still just saving that exact same 10%, but now that's $500 a month. Over 5 years, that one simple shift means person B has $12,000 more in savings. And as that income gap grows over time, the difference in their wealth building potential becomes absolutely mind-blowing. When you increase your income, literally everything gets easier. Debt disappears faster, and investing, it just becomes effortless. Now, I can practically hear some of you thinking, yeah, okay, if getting a raise was that easy, I would have done it by now. And fair enough, it definitely doesn't happen overnight. But people vastly underestimate what they can pull off in 60 months. There's this crazy stat from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Workers who switch jobs often see their salary jump by 10 to 20% on average, just by switching. If you strategize and do that just twice in a 5-year window, your baseline income is going to look completely unrecognizable. 5 years is more than enough time to learn a high-paying skill, totally pivot your career, or finally get that side hustle off the ground.
So you've got the income up. Awesome. That takes us to step 2. Stop lifestyle inflation and the really sneaky psychology of why raises rarely make us rich.
Okay, this is the classic trap. You finally grind and get that big raise, and what instantly happens? You upgrade the apartment, you lease a much nicer car, you start buying the overly expensive artisanal coffee beans. Your income went way up, but your bank account? It stayed exactly the same. It's what psychologists call hedonic adaptation. Basically, it's that super annoying tendency where our brains just instantly get used to a better lifestyle. Think about when you buy a brand new car. It feels absolutely incredible. For like maybe 3 months. Then the new car smell totally fades. It just becomes the metal box that gets you to work. It feels completely normal, and suddenly, you're already eyeing the next upgrade. This psychological loop is literally one of the biggest wealth killers out there.
So how do we beat it? You have to implement a strict, totally non-negotiable rule, the 50% rule. Every single time your income goes up, you must automatically save and invest at least half of that new money. Period. If your paycheck goes up by $1,000 a month, you immediately set up an auto transfer to invest 500 of it. You don't even think about it. And the other 500, you are completely free to enjoy it. Upgrade your life guilt-free with that half. But forcefully locking away the other 50% is the only way to stop lifestyle inflation from quietly stealing all of your hard-earned progress.
All right, so you boosted your income and you protected it from lifestyle creep. Now it's time for step 3. Invest consistently and finally making your dollars work for you.
Historically speaking, broad market investing is quite simply one of the most reliable wealth-building tools human beings have ever created. Let's take the S&P 500, which is just an index tracking the top 500 companies in the US. Over the last century, it's returned roughly 10% annually on average. Now, sure, the market is a bumpy ride in the short term. It absolutely goes up and down. But zooming out, it is a massive, unstoppable wealth generator. Let's say you followed steps 1 and 2, and now you're comfortably investing $1,000 a month. Over 5 years, you're putting in $60,000 of your own cash. But thanks to that moderate market growth, that pile blossoms into roughly $70,000 or even more. You've essentially created 10 grand out of thin air just by giving your dollars a job to do.
And this brings us to the real magic, building 5-year momentum, and how this drastically accelerates your next decade. There's this great story from the source material that just perfectly sums this up. It's about this young guy in his 20s who was just constantly stressed out about money. He was barely making ends meet, his savings were practically zero. But he made a serious commitment. For 5 straight years, he just tuned out all the noise. No risky options trading, no crypto bets, just brutal, unsexy discipline on those 3 exact steps. And 5 years later, he'd over $80,000 invested, and his baseline income had completely doubled. Now just stop and think about what happens to this guy in his next 5 years. He's starting with an $80K snowball that is already spinning and generating compound interest, and he has twice the shovel to just keep throwing money into it. That right there is how real wealth works. It's not an overnight miracle, it is a giant snowball of compounding momentum.
So, let's rapidly recap this roadmap to really lock it into your brain. Step 1, increase your income. Remember, your ability to earn is your absolute greatest financial asset when you're starting out. Step 2, protect yourself from lifestyle inflation by automatically saving at least 50% of every single raise. And step 3, invest consistently in long-term broad market assets. Wealth isn't born from picking one lucky stock. It comes from hundreds of small, kind of boring, repetitive decisions that you just make consistently over 60 months.
And I want to leave you with this final, really powerful thought. 5 years from today is going to arrive whether you prepare for it or not. The time is going to pass anyway, right? The only variable here is what your financial life is going to look like when that date finally hits the calendar. Are you still going to be scrolling, wondering why everyone else is getting ahead, just feeling stuck? Or will you have built this unstoppable financial engine that makes the entire rest of your life so much easier? Where do you want your finances to be 5 years from today? Because that future depends entirely on the small, unflashy decisions you choose to make right now. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.